So today we're going to talk about how to build your identity. My name is Dr. Cavanaugh, creator of the Vibe Mindset. Let's get this thing started. One of the most interesting questions you can ask someone is, who are you, right? Who are you? And we oftentimes will ask ourselves that, right? And it's a very powerful question. And it's one worthy of delving in and spending some time thinking about, because your identity is like a GPS. It guides you. It completely directs your life. And so your beliefs, your values, your character traits, your personality, all of that is what encompasses your identity. And so one of the most amazing things about identity is it can change over time. And you can also build and kind of move things around to become a different person. There are a bunch of things that shape your identity. Things like your culture, where you grew up, your parents, your peers, your profession. So there's a lot of things that are involved in creating your identity. And depending on what level of importance you put on each one of them, that will dictate how powerful that value or identity trait is. And it's interesting because one of the things about identity is when you start looking at people over time, you start to notice that your identity can actually be shaped and changed over time. So this is not a permanent trait or a permanent characteristic. This is something that you can build, create, and move around to better suit that which you desire in your life. So your identity can change. And so what's great about that is it offers us that comfort of saying, hey, listen, I may not be completely content with who I am right now, but the great news is I can build my identity, create a new identity moving forward. So let's talk about some strategies you can use to build your identity. So one, which is my favorite, is imagine who you want to be. And it's so crazy that not enough of us use our imagination. And if you watched enough of my videos, you'll hear me say it time and time again, that imagination is our biggest gift. It's what makes us unique. But how often do we really use the power of our imagination? When we're kids, we use it all the time, right? To play around and imagine things with our friends when they came over to our house. So imagination is a gift that we need to activate and implement more often. And so one of the things you want to do when you're thinking about where you want to be and who you are is imagine who you want to be. And sometimes even imagine who you are right now, imagine who you want to be, and then just start breaking down the steps that you need to take to inch yourself closer to being that person you want to be. And it's really not rocket science. It's, in order to prove that you have a specific trait, like let's say, for example, you want to say that you're focused, okay? Or disciplined. Like for example, I'll give you an example that I did about 4 months ago. It wasn't the best experiment, but it was educational to say the least. So I said, today I want to prove that I am disciplined and I do not lose focus. That was my goal. And so the whole day I took small little steps to create the supportive evidence that I was disciplined and focused. So anything I did, I said, hey, is there an opportunity for me to be disciplined and focused? And I would find those opportunities because, as you know, what you look for, you find. And so one of the examples that I have was I ended up saying to myself, I am not going to get off my new Instagram account until I get 30 new followers. And so I stayed on my phone for 4 hours, 4 straight hours. It was not the best experiment, but one thing was interesting. Did I lose 4 hours of my life for something that probably wasn't all that important? 100%, absolutely. No doubt. However, at that time, that's what I was thinking. But then it was funny because later on that day and even the next morning, I said, wait a minute. I said, I was really disciplined yesterday. I was totally focused. So here I am not being so sure as to whether I'm disciplined and focused, but yet I just had a day where I created tons of evidence. It was almost like I was a lawyer showing up to court to prove my case. And there was so much evidence to support that I truly was focused and disciplined. Now imagine if that was just me in one day. What would happen if you did that 6 days in a row, 7 days in a row, 12 days in a row? Maybe every Tuesday you did something to show that you're focused and disciplined. What happens is this: in order to believe that you possess a certain value, characteristic trait, right? You have to take the actions that support it. And so that's one of the things that I learned. And so when you want to build your identity, think about that which you want to become, think of the characteristic, and then envision and imagine in detail how you will embody it, okay? That's one of the biggest steps and one of the biggest strategies for building your identity. Now, if you take that step and you add a second step to it, which is where you add emotions to that imaginative task of saying, hey, what would it look like if I embodied the trait of discipline and focus? Like, what would that feel like? What would that feel like? Get the emotions involved. I love, love, love the power of emotions. It's amazing how underappreciated they are. Imagination and emotion are the two gifts that we have that we need to all use more often because they have tremendous power and they influence in so many ways. They influence the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we act, the decisions we make. So super powerful. So when you're imagining the person that you want to be, one of the great things you can do is envision and feel now the emotion of you embodying that trait and being that person or becoming that person. Sometimes there's a gap, right? So like, let's say, for example, let's stick with the same discipline and focus. Let's say that you are not focused and not disciplined at all. So you're over here. Now, all of a sudden you want to embody the trait and you want to become more focused and disciplined over here. So what happens is there's sometimes too big of a gap for you to imagine it and feel it to be true and real because you're like, wow, I'm here, but I want to be here. And so sometimes that disconnect, that gap is too big and it causes you to feel like you're in lack. And so that state, that emotional state of lack typically doesn't serve you too well. So the way to close that gap is to take small little steps and say to yourself, okay, I am not disciplined and focused yet. That's one. So use the word yet. Or you can say, I am becoming more disciplined and more focused. And then take actions each and every day, or maybe even several times a day, to prove that you are becoming more focused and disciplined. The key is the emotions. You get that imagination and pair it and team it up with the power of emotions. I swear to you, it is the 1-2 punch that will truly help you build a new and improved identity. Another strategy you can use that I absolutely love because it's fun is creating an alter ego. So let's say, for example, you want to have a good workout. Whenever I want to have a great, strong, powerful workout, if you've ever heard of C.T. Fletcher, not all of you have, when he works out, he is a super inspiring and he is intense. He is so intense. When he works out, he commands, his famous line is, I command you to grow. I command you to grow. So he'll be looking at his biceps and he will literally just sit there and say, I command you to grow. It is definitely worth Googling him, C.T. Fletcher. So when I want to have a good workout, what do? I create this alter ego where I'm like, I'm going to become C.T. Fletcher, right? And sure enough, my workouts get intense because I think, feel, and act as if I am him. So the as if part is also powerful. You find this alter ego, whether it's Conor McGregor, C.T. Fletcher, who knows what it is. I'm thinking more in terms of working out for myself because I just worked out not too long ago. And so that's what's fresh in my mind. But think about an alter ego. Think about it's not like you're becoming someone else. We're not talking about not being your true authentic self. Obviously, that is the goal, is to be your true authentic self. However, you can still play the role of someone else and act and think in a way that they do to get a desired result. And so in that case, I have some of the best workouts I ever have. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not my true self. It doesn't mean I'm not me. I'm still me, but I'm embodying the traits and characteristics and personalities of these individuals to obtain a certain goal. Another powerful strategy you can use to build your identity is to create a personal philosophy. Creating a personal philosophy is so much fun. I remember the first time I was exposed to this technique was by Dr. Michael Gervais, and I was so excited about it because I said, wow, I'm basically creating almost like a guidance system for all my thoughts, feelings, and actions. How could that not be powerful? And so I remember in the exercise, he said, hey, listen, you are going to notice that there are going to be several changes to that personal philosophy. So don't be so set on having one and keeping that. So when I started doing it, I think it changed in 1, 2, 3 days. It could have been 50, 60 times. But what I came finally to agree upon was that I want to be curious, I want to be creative, and I also want to be kind. So those were the 3 things that I came up with, and I said, wow. And so what I did to take it one step further, I said, okay, so I'm going to take actions that create alignment with creativity, curiosity, and kindness. So what would that look like? And so I said, all right, creative. Well, I ended up creating a business, the Vibe Mindset, the big key to why I'm talking to you right now here on YouTube. And we also created an app where you embody traits. Like, how cool is that? But that was all because I created the personal philosophy of that characteristic trait of being creative. So that's one. And then secondly, I also wanted to be curious. And so I'm like, well, what is curious? Like, what does that look like, right? And so one of the other things I did to take action to support that curiosity is every morning since March, when the shutdown happened with COVID, I ended up having a book every single morning that I would read. Then I got to the point where I had 2 books where I would read a little bit of one, then a little bit of the other every single morning when I woke up super early, around like 4:30. Then I got to the point where now I have 4 books. And what I do is I read enough of each of those 4 books until I learn one little nugget. And then I keep that nugget and try to think about how I can activate it and use it throughout my day. And so just coming up with my personal philosophy was enough to have me, 1, create a completely new business that I never dreamed of, which I'm absolutely fascinated with, and it will likely replace my current career as an optometrist. And then I also have gotten so much education. Every single morning, I start my morning with education. And there are all these different topics as well. So it's a very nice broad range. And then thirdly, kindness. Well, it wasn't what inspired me to create onerack.org, which is my nonprofit. However, it just is a reminder that I want to do one thing every day to help someone, and if you can help another person out, it's just a huge buzz. I just absolutely am addicted to it. So one random act of kindness can change a life is one of the philosophies that I have. And so I always try to embody that philosophy, embody that kindness. So every single day, I'm trying to be curious, looking to be creative, and looking to be kind. What could you do and what could you create for a personal philosophy to give you that guidance and kind of give you that lift that I felt when I created mine? So to wrap things up, you can build your identity. You can become you 2.0. You can become a better version of you, okay? So I'm gonna put some links in the bio or description rather below for you to gain access to the Vibe Tribe that we have, where you actually will gain access to a app that we created where there's nothing else like it, where we activate your imagination, pair it with the emotion, and you embody a trait, and you go through this imaginative process right before you go to sleep. And then once you wake up, you set an intention as to how you'll embody that trait that you imagined you possessed the previous evening. It's a super powerful, one-of-a-kind. Trust me, look around. I did too. I'm not just saying it. I know people say one-of-a-kind all the time, and it's not always one-of-a-kind. This is a one-of-a-kind trait embodiment app and a membership area where you can figure out how to activate the Vibe mindset paired with using the app to create change and build your identity. It's a super powerful process that's gotten great reviews so far. I've used it myself, which is why I created it, because I noticed that was what was bringing joy, happiness, and direction and clarity into my life. So build your identity, choose what identity traits you want to have. There's a whole bunch of great traits, and embodying traits is fun. And so thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like, give it a subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. What trait do you want to embody? What person do you want to become? Who are you now and who do you want to be in the future? Super powerful questions, super powerful answers to be had. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.